most everybody here knows me, so I don't think any big illusions as to where the inspiration for all this stuff comes from. I'm a nerd. I like fantasy stuff. I like sci-fi stuff. I love comic books. The last two shows were mostly comic book based, so this show went more fantasy and mythology based, everything. Hence, the Deities and Demigods, Legends and Lore are two old book titles for the same book from TSR back in the early days of Dungeons and Dragons. So there was an old school Dungeons and Dragons gamer from when I was a kid. He was just here with his wife. They just left, but they recognized a couple of the characters in the character book. They're like, "Is that John's character? Is that whoever's character?" I'm like, "Yeah. Glad you noticed." If you have any questions about anything after I'm done spewing vitriol of everything, feel free to ask. Most of the new stuff is gods and monsters, that type of thing. They're scattered around. The painting things, it's not really my wheelhouse, but I wanted to do something different for the cryptids and stuff over there, and a couple of the other pictures. There was many more planned, but I procrastinated a whole lot, so I did not get a lot of those done. You'll see some of the rough drafts for them though in the rough draft book. So a couple of the books have like burgeoning ideas, rough drafts, unfinished work, stuff that's work in progress, whatever, from over the years. Just because it's work in progress doesn't mean it's something like recent. It could be a work in progress that I like sketched up like over a decade ago and then never finished. A couple of the pieces up here I finished in the past couple of weeks that were like sitting in the rough draft book for many years. So it just fit the out of my wheelhouse are the tree people couple. The original tree people couple was done when I was in middle school. And whenever they tore down the Westmont Middle School, they were like, "Hey, we've got a picture of yours hanging in the hallway. Do you want it?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, but sure." So after I got it back, then I was like, "Oh, I did a rough draft sketch of something like that recently," meaning in a couple of years since they had given that to me. And then I was like, I pulled this out, and then I never touched it again until the show was coming up. I'm like, I'm going to revisit that tree people thing. And then, so there's the 1987 Koa in the middle school picture. Here's one that I drafted up, a couple of years ago. And then here are the finished ones, which these ones are the only ones that don't have a price on them, that are the artwork that's for sale. If you are interested in them, because there was a bunch of people interested in them, we're doing a charity auction thing for them. So, there's a reserve on them, but go ahead if you are interested. Go ahead, tell them.
Proceeds benefit the Community Arts Center.
Yeah. Character art, sketches, prints. There are prints in two or three of the portfolio books that aren't hanging on the wall. And if you're interested in those prints, you can just take the book up to the counter and be like, "I want this picture out of this book," and they'll be like, "Okay." The prints and the works that are for sale have a little tag price on the cover of the books. There are some books that are just for show, though. So the ones that don't have any kind of price mentioned up front, they're just for flipping through, looking through. Mostly it's the rough draft pictures and some of the old character art that nobody's going to be interested in having some D&D character that I played 20 years ago or anything like that. Be like, "I really want this picture." Has any certain significance to me, probably. I think that's it. I hope you guys like it. And if I do another show in like another 3 years or whatever, we'll try to have it all new stuff instead of like a smattering of like old and new like this is. So if you've been doing one of my shows before, you might be like, "I remember this piece." There are some pieces that have been in all 3 shows. But most of these haven't been in the last show. I'd say it's mostly new artwork, at least new to the show, not new, because as my dad and family who just left a little bit ago were saying, other than the middle school piece, there are some pieces I did in high school up here. So, like this one, just from high school. This was a high school print. There's a drawing, like a sketch from high school way over there and stuff like that. So, some things stay in the portfolio book for a really long time, or hanging on a family's wall someplace. That's it. Anybody have any questions? I hope you enjoyed the show. Now I'm going to draw it. So, there you go.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. You have to ask a question because you feel like you need to.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's also a question that I ask basically every show, and it is, what is your favorite piece from this exhibit?
Ooh. 2. It's actually my dad's Beowulf drawing that I did in high school. I don't know, it's not that impressive. It's like the oldest piece that I don't want to say I took a serious amount of time on, but I was just like, I'm drawing every link of chainmail. It's like, it's got a, plus it hangs in my dad's house. It's whatever. So that one I really like for just that reason. And then there's several that I like. Beyond that, it's hard to pick a favorite, and it's an obscure one, but it's the only one that, and it's just the print. The original is owned by somebody from some comic convention someplace, but there's a Lord Soth between the two gods back there, between Kali and Oya. I don't know why I really like that piece. Maybe it's because I like Lord Soth, because Lord Soth is the Knight of the Black Rose from the Dragonlance series, and it's a great series of books, and he's an awesome character. And so I really like that piece. And then there's a print of Doom with the gauntlet. It's Lord Soth and Doom are probably tied.
Yeah.
Because it's Doom. And I love Dr. Doom. So, not because they're the best pieces, but those are my favorites because...
And that's why I worded it that way, like your favorite.
They're my favorites because there's the ones that will hang. If nobody buys those, they're just going to go and hang on my wall at the house, in my house. But these go up in my house because I care about these ones. So those are my favorites.
Thank you. Anybody have any other questions?
I read an article in the newspaper before I got here saying that you were doing a couple of art pieces based off of gods, monsters, and mythology, and I was surprised to hear from the article something that you said, that you were of Polynesian descent, and that got me a little curious to wonder, because I was looking around to see any particular art pieces that were modeled after Polynesian mythology, because most of us have seen the Disney film Moana, which was like our introduction to that sort of culture, and I was just figuring, since you said that and you were doing a whole presentation about artwork based off of mythology, I figured I might as well just ask you if you had some ones you'd like to point out.
There are 2 over here, actually. They are also owned by family. So there's Maui, that people know. He is a Polynesian demigod known for pulling the islands of Hawaii up out of the ocean. That was he did all kinds of other things, but that was his big feat. I'm going to pull the, and then the Polynesians have several versions of how the islands came to be. That's just one of them. But anyway, there's a Maui picture over here, and that hangs in my dad's house in his stairwell. And then there's the most famous goddess of Hawaiian or Polynesian stuff is Pele. And she is the goddess of the volcano, and there's a whole tragic story about her and everything like that. And that's the picture above Maui, and that hangs in my mom's house in Vegas. So those 2, I have some, they're in the rough draft books. There are rough drafts for, I think, 2 other Polynesian gods. I think they're in rough draft books, or they're in a stack of rough drafts at home. But you'll see one, and I can't remember her name. I think her name is just Ku, Ku or whatever like that. And she's a kind of a Tahitian / Polynesian goddess of fertility and everything like that. And then another one of a Koa warrior, because my name's Koa. So I did a rough draft, but I don't know if either of those are in the rough draft books or not. There, yeah. So those are Polynesian stuff. 2 here, more to come eventually when I have the design. There were more of Norse gods. There was more Greek gods. There was more Egyptian stuff that I was planning on doing. More I had picked out all the major pantheons. I was going to do I wanted to do at least 3 pieces of. That didn't happen. but they are on my list of stuff to do eventually. If I do finally get together enough deities and demigods and legends and lore type pictures together, I'll put together a sketchbook. And then maybe once I get it printed out, I'll give a stack to the art center to sell. But I'm a good handful of pictures away from doing that, just purely deities and demigods type sketchbook for sale. So, thank you for the question. Hopefully that answered it. Probably more than answered it. Way too much information.
Anybody else? Okay.
All right, enjoy the show. Get
Thank you
some
very
cheese
much.
and wine.